Can you set your lens to German expressionism? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost a kind of sort of nightmarish Grimm's fairy tale kind of sort
Yeah.
of atmosphere to it.
You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.
James, the girl with the needle. I keep wanting to say with the golden needle or the something needle.
Or
That's
the
just
dragon
girl.
tattoo needle.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, the
something.
girl with the needle.
Okay, this is a film that's been on my radar for most of the year, actually. It premiered at Cannes, and I think the people that saw it there were kind of shell-shocked by it, and so it was already starting to sort of garner this reputation as being sort of something. And at first I wasn't sure from the noises people were making, because people were being quite guarded with specifics, and I think that that's quite true. I mean, we will get into them here because we are a spoiler show. So I was like, oh, is it an actual horror movie, or is it a historical drama, or is it something a bit more psychological? Is it a war film? And as I turned out now, I've watched it. The answer is yes to all of those things, pretty much. So yeah, so I had the vaguest of ideas of what this was about going in. I had seen the director's previous film, Sweat, which is very different, a contemporary film about a woman who's an online influencer who spirals somewhat. But I wasn't sure what to expect, and I watched this yesterday, and all I knew was that it was heavy, it was a gut punch, and you're going to need to strap in and get ready for something pretty special. And yeah, that's absolutely true. So much so that I immediately had to put on Top Gun Maverick as a palate cleanser, because I was like, oh, which works brilliantly. But that is not to take away anything from Go with the Needle. Go with the Needle is excellent, but it's a lot.
Oh, I think I messaged you. Hey James, just watch The Girl with the Needle. I'm gonna go kill myself now.
It's absolutely sort of brutal. I mean, it is based, albeit loosely, on a true story, which is even more shocking. It takes place in Denmark in the aftermath of World War One. And our protagonist is a young woman called Caroline, who has been evicted from her home. She can't pay the rent. She works as a seamstress in a factory that were making uniforms, like military uniforms. And obviously now it's the end of the war, and so there is some sort of change going on there. She catches the eye of the young owner, who sort of seduces her, gets her pregnant, and then promises to marry her, only for his mother to step in and go, no, you're not doing that. You go away now, and you're also fired. So she has to.
I love the whole scene where she's telling, "Oh, of course, son, you can make your own choice, but you'll be doing it without my money, without my house." And you could just see his face going, "Okay, there goes that marriage."
Exactly. So she ends up. She has the baby, and she ends up taking it to a woman who apparently can help rehouse, unwanted babies. It's a sort of
foster
backstreet adoption agency, essentially. And she even offers to sort of come in and start working for her, only to discover some incredibly horrible truths about what is actually going on. First and foremost, I want to talk about the look of this film, the aesthetic of this film, because
gorgeous
beautifully shot in black and white. But it's not just in black and white. There's a kind of almost German expressionist kind of look to it. I mean, it evoked a lot of David Lynch for me as well. Films like his black and white movies, Eraserhead and The Elephant Man, for a number of reasons. The Elephant Man as well, really were kind of called to mind.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, James, because I remember thinking while I'm watching it, this is in black and white, and I love that whole dichotomy because of the nature of the story and the evil and the good, and I just thought it was a wonderful decision by Von Horn to do this in black and white. But the black and white felt different, and you just mentioning that German expressionism. Can you set your lens to German expressionism? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost a kind of sort of nightmarish Grimm's fairy tale kind of sort of atmosphere to it. It's ever so. I think the black and white helps kind of remove it from reality. Take one step out of the light into the shadow, which gives everything this kind of spooky, nightmarish kind of quality to it.
Well,
Some of
grim is the
the
operative word. Grim is the operative word there.
well, quite. I mean,
What
I
you
know
just
that
suggested.
we're talking Denmark, so it should be Hans Christian Andersen, but it really is kind of there is a grimness, an unrelenting grimness to all of this, and that's what made me think of Eraserhead, because they live this very sort of impoverished life. There's a new child, and it's sort of this industrial urban wasteland, and although the aesthetic here is sort of on the one hand, or the setting is very different. It's cobbled streets, it's narrow alleys. Having watched sort of Nosferatu recently, it's not a wholly different setting to what that was, it Habsburg or whatever the German city was that Nosferatu
Right.
takes place in. It's and that's what really lends it this sort of fairy tale kind of almost quality to it. This is a story about a maiden and an innocent baby and a wicked witch kind of thing, and all of these kind of elements to it, albeit with both its feet on the floor. And I loved that, because there's even a kind of a needle. She pricks herself on a needle in the
Yeah.
most horrible way imaginable, but so there's a kind of almost Sleeping Beauty. So it's a, I'm not to say that it's
A
specifically
fairy tale.
aligned. Yeah, well, certainly, or specifically aligned with any one of those, but all of the worst kind of gothic horror elements of those fairy tales all seem to kind of pop up in this movie, or a great number of them. Whether it comes to sort of stealing babies, or pricking yourself with needles, or all of this kind of other stuff. And then there is a kind of carnival-esque element to it
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. And that really lends itself to that almost surreal feel, because anytime you go into that kind of carnival, I've made me think of Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, exactly. Nightmare Alley. It's interesting. This past weekend, I watched a couple of early films by Todd Browning. Todd Browning was he directed Dracula for Universal back in 1930-31, but he also directed a very notorious movie called Freaks,
Oh, yes.
all about circus folk, and particularly the bearded lady and the and what have you, which again influenced David Lynch's The Elephant Man, and it influenced Nightmare Alley. And I watched a couple of his other films that are on this recent Criterion release of Freaks, and there's one called The Mystic and the other called The Unknown, and it's the Mystic, which feels like a real precursor to Nightmare Alley. Actually, it's about sort of hoodwinking audiences, carnival folks who pull a ruse over other people. But there's a very sympathetic. He casts a very sympathetic view over these people. Todd Browning, previously, before he became a filmmaker, was in the circus. So he knows these people really, really well. So he's on their side as he's telling these kind of stories about sort of freaks, essentially, about sort of freak show, what do you call it, attractions. And there's an element of that in this Caroline is her name. When we first meet her, she's applying for a sort of a welfare grant because she's been widowed by the war. Her husband has died in the war. She then finds out he hasn't died.
Yeah.
He's back, and he'd been in the hospital because he's horribly disfigured. It's like Jack Huston's character in Boardwalk Empire. He comes back with kind of a mask over half of his face because he's lost half of his face on the battlefield, and she has to deal with that. And I think it's quite beautiful how she does deal with that eventually. Eventually, but he ends up joining the circus. Because what else can he do but become a sort of an attraction himself, and
A circus freak.
yeah, for one of a better.
That.
Yeah, no, I know
Because I was thinking when he's got the mask on, I'm thinking surely it's not that bad, and then he removes it and goes, no, it's that bad.
Yeah, I liked how they hold that back for quite a fair part of the movie. So we're not going to show you exactly what he looks like for a while. So it lends sort of an element of mystery to it, and you don't see his face until the moment that she actually sort of returns to him. Really, it's when he's up on stage and she sort of volunteers to go up on stage with him. And I just loved all of those kind of dark gothic elements to this film. I mean, I'm a kind of I'm no expert, but I am a sucker for movies of that period. You know, the Universal monster movies, the German expressionism. You know, films like Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. You know, and a lot of those Universal movies benefited from the German artists who did all of that stuff fleeing Germany because of the Nazis and coming over to Hollywood in the 30s and 40s, you know, who gave us all those monster movies, who gave us film noir, you know, all of that sort of expressionist use of shadow and strange, bizarre angles, and just this sensibility of kind of from artists who had grown up with these fairy tales, if you know what I mean.
Right.
You know, so you know, all of that was so embedded in all of this, and this film for me really felt like it was the natural successor to all of that in many ways,
Yeah.
and so I just kind of loved it, really.
See, I look at it from, I appreciate you enlightening those angles. I'm always looking at it from, because I write about life and faith through the lens of pilgrimage and my Substack, and so I'm looking at through her eyes and I'm thinking, if I'm dealt this hand, how do I react? I mean, I am a fairly blessed middle class white guy with a good passport and have had a pretty unchallenging life when compared, you know, on the bell curve of the rest of humanity. If I'm Carolyn and life is throwing me these curveballs, how do I react? What is human nature? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it something inherent within the person, or are we merely a responding to our environment? And Carolyn is what I like about this film is it's very realistic. She is not this totally noble woman that despite the circumstances around her, her compass is always true north. I love those kind of movies and I respond to them, but it's probably not realistic. This is a woman who is basically pretty good, who life keeps throwing her one nasty curveball after another, and she doesn't respond to all of them in the best human way that we would hope that humans do. But she eventually comes around. Circumstances go this way, go that way. And in the end, through after she's pushed through all this shite and mud and everything that life has thrown against her, she still finds she is still a redeemed character who is able to form a new family, albeit nothing she would have guessed at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, no, she really kind of has to put up with a lot, but comes through it, and you are rooting for her all the way.
Yeah.
And while I think the artistic approach to the look of the film and the mood of the film is very heightened and does have this very sort of expressionistic influence to it. It is an incredibly grounded, realistic story. You know, you never feel like you're watching a nightmare or a fairy tale or something. You know, this is a kind of very honest story of pain and suffering and the hard truth about how we get through these situations and how we endure. I mean, obviously, we have to talk about the subject of motherhood and abortion and all the rest of it. I kept being reminded. I mean, sorry, yeah, we are a spoilers show, so we are going to get into the weeds with this and into the mud and dirt of it all. I was constantly reminded by one of these ridiculous statements that Donald Trump was saying, where he was like, "Oh, they're aborting these babies 6, 7, sometimes 9 months, 9 month to term. You know, after they're born, they're killing these babies." And you're like, "What are you talking about, you moron?" But that's what's happening here. And, you know, it brings up this incredibly poignant and obviously timely debate about when does life start, and is there ever a right time to have an abortion? You know, can it ever be justified? You know, I think it's been fascinating that in the wake of all of these horrible changes particularly to like what's happening in America and the changes to the laws regarding Roe v. Wade and what have you, and you know, when does life start, that it has generated all of these really interesting stories and really interesting films which examine this idea and this, for want of a better word, concept. in different genres, and
Yeah.
these kind of parables, if you like, about what's the right thing to do here, and is it ever okay to terminate a pregnancy, to terminate a life, and
Right.
what is more important, the life of the mother or the life of the child, and all of these things. And this film really, really does take us. It's interesting because it really explores it, but I think it also manages to explore both sides of the argument quite effectively.
Yeah, you never come away thinking that this is a pro-abortion film or a like an anti-abortion film. There's that great scene in the courtroom where the woman who's murdering the children looks at the audience and says, you accuse me essentially, but I'm doing the thing you all need to have done. Like I'm doing you a favor. You all
Mm.
want these problems to go away, and I'm the one who makes the problems go away. And you brought up Trump. I couldn't help but think about Trump. I'm seeing Trump through the guy's occupying too much of my headspace, and I'm really
Yeah.
trying to avoid it. But essentially, basically, I am the conduit of all the things you want to go away, but you don't want to talk about. You want immigrants to go away and you want to have this lifestyle and you don't want to talk about the way that we get back there and I'm the guy that's going to do it for you. And I might be hated by a lot of you, but I'm the one who's going to get it done. And that's essentially what this woman is saying is all those little things you don't want to talk about in polite society, I'm doing so that your problems will go away.
I mean, I would never want to give Trump that kind of nobility, but
Dude.
I think that that's what's interesting about how the film comes to its conclusion is that in a strange way, maybe this is just me, but in a strange way, Dagmar, the older woman who is responsible for doing all this, isn't demonized. She makes a very, very good point. She's like, I am doing the thing that you didn't have the guts to do. I'm clearing up your mess. You're the ones who got yourselves into this situation. You came to me,
Mhm.
basically. And
But the
all I
only
did.
thing is, they thought they were being adopted. I mean, if you go to an adoption agency, and yes, I can't take care of this child, I give them over to an adoption agency. I'm not in my mind thinking, okay, you're going to go kill him in a back alley. I think it's
Sure.
she is the villain in this, James. I mean, she's
Yes.
not doing any. She's got her own logic, but this is not normal people logic.
Okay, no, I think that's fair, but I think the film gives her her moment to voice her opinion, and
Well,
she
yeah.
makes a valid point, is what I'm saying. But I think that that only serves to highlight how complex the entire argument is. And yes,
Yes.
of course, she's lying to all of these young mothers, saying yes, I'm gonna give them a good home, and she's taking them around the corner and strangling them, and throwing them down the toilet or burning them or whatever. Yeah, it's horrible. And putting babies in the fire. That's another fairy tale thing. That's like Hansel and Gretel
That's
putting them in
Hansel
the
and
oven.
Gretel. Yeah. That's exactly what
Exactly.
I thought. Yeah.
There is so much of that stuff being evoked in this that I think it's incredibly rich to the point that as hard as it's going to be, I'm kind of want to watch it again now.
Oh,
Just to
no. See, this is the kind of movie
just to sort
that
of
it's a
revel in all of
one-timer
that.
for me. Like it's a
Interesting.
one-timer. I don't need to because it's such a downer. I mean, yes, it does have some redeeming qualities at the end, but it is really rough to get through. I mean, she has one thing after another, and it's just depressing after depressing after depressing. And yes, I can admire the filmmaking ability and the acting was incredible. And there's all kinds of reasons and legitimately so why this movie is getting the accolades
Mm.
that it has. And yet for me, the rewatchability level is very low.
No, I get that. I mean, it's not a rollicking romp. It's not
Popcorn summer
entertainment.
summer popcorn hit.
But I think it's an incredibly powerful and rich piece of work. And just talk, and I came away probably watching it yesterday going, okay, that's fine. Yeah, great. It was a good movie. But the more I'm talking about it now, the more I'm appreciating what the film did and what it's drawing from and how it's putting forth its arguments and what have you, to the point where I'm like, actually, I kind of think I will watch this again. Maybe not now,
Okay.
maybe not.
Yeah.
We'll see. But at some point, I think I will give it another go just to further explore all of those things that I've perhaps only truly recognized in hindsight. Because I think it goes pretty far because there are moments of real sort of surrealist imagery in there as well. There are those persistent, extreme close-ups of an eyeball
Yeah,
throughout.
yeah, yeah.
And then there are those. It starts with that kind of sort of distorted face on top of a face on top of a face, which reminded me of. I
Oh,
don't know if you.
yes, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if you're familiar with the work of Aphex Twin, who's a British electronic musician, but a video. I think Chris Cunningham directed one of his videos called "Come to Daddy" in the mid '90s. Look it up on YouTube. That music video is arguably one of the scariest music videos I've ever seen.
Okay.
But it taps into very much the same sort of aesthetic sensibility as the most sort of extreme surreal moments
Yeah.
of this film. And I was reminded of that in this as well.
Very
And it's
nice.
interesting that the title of that song has a kind of parental element of it. That song's "Come to
Warning
Daddy."
on it.
Yeah. Well, no, just the fact that it alludes to some kind of sort of parental connection, and obviously this is a film about parental connections or severing them or whatever. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it was a really tough watch for sure, but I found it an absolutely fascinating film, and the performances are awesome, and that it managed to feel so otherworldly, but also so grounded in right now as well.
Yeah.
I thought that was really impressive for me.
And it's nominated for Best International Feature. So,
It
which is
is.
why we're reviewing it. Remind me again how, I mean, obviously there's a short list of 15 that it gets whittled down to. Who pre-Academy, who decides that these are the nominations?
Okay, that's interesting. I'm not
Or is that
100.
outside the parameters of this review? I'm just
Yeah, I think it definitely is because I was going to get into its chances in the Oscars now, and I was like, nah, maybe save that for another video.
okay. We can. Well, why don't we hold this off then? We'll save this for another video.
So, Phil, unit of measurement. It's got to
Phil?
be It's got to be needles, right? Surely.
Am I Phil now?
Did I call you Phil? Oh God, sorry. Oh, my brain is going. Sorry. So, Steve, we need a unit of measurement for the girl with the needle.
It's got to be a needle.
It's needle or babies, so it's going to be needle, I think.
Let's go with the needle.
Why don't you kick us
I,
off?
I actually forgot to put this up on my letterbox, so I did it this morning. So I had to come up with my stars, and I'm going to give it 4 needles. Like I said earlier, this is wonderfully shot. It's deserving of all the accolades it's getting. I couldn't go lower than 4 just because of everything we discussed in this episode, but I couldn't go to 5. It's just too depressing for me. It's too unrewatchable for me. And so I'm going to give it a solid 4 needles out of 5.
Yeah, I'm going with 4 as well. I really appreciate everything that it does, or the manner in which it's doing all the things that it does. I think, as I've said, I think I will give it a second look just to see how it goes. I mean, now I know what's coming, it might help me appreciate all the other stuff. I just felt there's so much in it, and it's about so much, and it does it in such a really visually interesting and stylish kind of way, and the performances are so strong. I think it's going to prove, dare I say, even rewarding on a second viewing, but it is incredibly tough and incredibly shocking, and that cannot be understated. So that, yeah, again, same as you, I cannot give it a full 5 right now. And so I'm going with 4 needles out of 5.
That's what James and I think about the girl with the needle. What would say you? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below. James?
Yeah, absolutely. And where does it fit for you among the other Oscar nominations, please? Or the other nominees, should I say? Let us know in the comments.
And you can find us on Blue Sky as well as Instagram. Go ahead and follow us. We'll follow you back.
That's right. Yeah, I'm Marshy00, MARSHY00 on Blue Sky. That's where you can find me.
And I think I'm Stephen Hackman with a PH.
With a PH. Okay.
Yeah,
I never know
you
whether you're
double check.
V or PH, so.
Yeah. So until next episode, guys.
You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. You're